and parent leaders, and our focus is on raising awareness about issues that impact youth mental health and wellness. So this event was really developed from a survey that we did to our school communities. We heard from students, parents, and educators, and across the board, this was one of the biggest topics that people wanted to talk about. Pressure and stress on youth, and anxiety and depression was also in there, and trying to balance our needs around diet, exercise, and sleep. So everybody, I can see a lot of head shaking. So it's an ambitious program that we put together, and we're so lucky that we have had people, all these students up here, we've had clinicians and educators just jump to volunteer to help us with this. So it really does leave us feeling very supported. And hopefully tonight you'll leave with some information and support. Questions answered, maybe more questions, probably more questions. But we're in this together, and we want to keep working on this throughout the year with you. So I just want to quickly say that the bathrooms, if you need, are out this door, take a right, and then a quick right. There's some bathrooms. Emergency exit is take a left out the door. So that's for in person. Virtual people, are we right? Cool. So we've got virtual people tapped in. Thank you for being here. We are going to have some discussion, and then around 7 we will have time for questions and answers, Q&A. And what we've done for the in-person folks is we have cards and pens, and so if you think of a question during this discussion, if you could just write it down or hold it, and just put it in the little container on the table if you have one. We'll collect it and get those questions curated. And then people on Zoom, if you could put it in the Q&A, we'll collect and add those questions. So hopefully we have time for a few. We might not have time for all of them. But the good news is, if you are in person, you're invited to stay after the program ends around 7:30, and you can talk with the speakers. And there's some outreach people here tonight. We have people from the Bridge Teen Center. Do you want to wait? Yes. We have people from the Institute of Living. There's our rep. Somewhere. There's one. Yes. And we have people from the West Hartford Social Services. So Megan. So we have a ton of resources in this room for you. And then we are going to send out an email with the resources and contact information for the speakers tonight. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to welcome our moderator and introduce our moderator. So this is Mondo Jimenez. Mondo is a native of Hartford. As the head of the Covenant Preparatory School, an independent middle school for boys in Hartford. As an equity activist, Mondo focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion through his service as a coach and mentor to students, career professionals, peers, and organizations. Mondo currently works for Intuit, and he founded the Tailored Compass, which helps people and organizations navigate towards their goals. Mondo believes in the power of coaching and mentoring at all levels, and is a connector at heart, sharing his energy to bring the best out of others. And I can say, just having known him a little bit, I completely agree with that. Mondo, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy November, Native American Heritage Month. November, Movember, everything, right? It is an honor to serve as a moderator today. You heard about me, right? Cool, amazing, but we're up here for you all. Like, this is the most important part. These superhumans that sit up here beside me, as well as you all in the audience and those at home. We've already taken the first step, right? And it's us having this conversation, right? It begins with us. It begins with self, but right, that's how we become better individuals, better communities, better leaders, and better impactors and influencers. So, with that being said, I want to make sure we get an opportunity to get to know our rising leaders here, and we'll start over here. And I'm going to hand you the microphone. Your name, what school you go to, your year. Everybody likes to eat, so what's your favorite meal? All right.
My name is Jay. I'm a senior at hall, and my favorite meal, that's important. But, I don't know, probably Chipotle.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm also a senior at Hall. And I was gonna say Chipotle, but I used to like Moe's too.
Hi, I'm Naya. I'm a junior. I go to West Hartford.
That's no longer magnitude. By the way, for those that are at home or virtual, if you can hear us, just give us a thumbs up, right? You can just press the icon and give us a thumbs up. And folks in the back, can you hear us or no?
Hi guys, how are you? I'm Tatiana. I'm a senior at Hall High School. I would say my favorite dish. Oh, that's a good question. I would say fried Wednesdays.
The sweet ones?
Oh.
Okay.
I'm Josh. I'm a senior at Hall, and I'd say my favorite meal is a breakfast meal, bagel and eggs.
Awesome. So we have some foodies up in Chipotle, clearly, right? Mac and cheese, sweet plantain, right? Can never go wrong with breakfast. So most important meal of the day. So let's dive a little deeper, right? You all, some of you are seniors, you have a junior. We're all getting ready to prepare for senior year for that next step. You'll probably be on campus next year, or probably working on a trade, wherever it may be, right? Progressing yourself. So the question I have for you all, right, is what hats do you wear, right? And when I say that is, so for example, me, right? My pronouns are he, him, his. I am a dad, right? I love, that's the best title I have. Second is I am a mentor, I'm a coach. I'm also a lifelong student and learner. But I also, I'm on social media, right? So I do have a presence on social media. I also am a director at my job, right? So I also have people who I work with and people I report to and people who report to me. So how many hats do you all wear, right? Because I think, you hear the word, we're busy, but you all are pretty busy yourselves, right? Like, so how many hats do you wear? And this is for anyone.
So I'm a big sister of 3.
Speak up, sir.
I'm a big sister of 3, an athlete.
That's a big sister of 3. You're an athlete. You're a full-time student. How many classes? 6. I don't have that many fingers. So yeah, so 6 classes. All right.
I'm in a lot of groups.
Okay.
Like leadership groups, outreach groups.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Who else? Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, so I'm a younger sister. I'm the youngest in my family. I'm a 3-season athlete. I'm a violinist, and I'm also involved in a lot of clubs and groups at Fall, and in my community.
Hello? No. Can they hear us on Zoom?
Nope.
There's an echo on Zoom.
So I don't even know if this is useful.
Is there an echo if I do this? So I know we use.
Can we use both?
It might be feedback on the opposite end. I just want to. Is it a annoying echo or is it a tolerable echo?
There is a delay.
Okay.
It's in the way.
So they'll get back to us in 10 minutes. So we'll continue for now. We'll just continue to project up here. Hopefully folks can hear us.
It's hard. It's hard to hear mine out.
Okay, you can, wait.
This one right here. So we'll use this one.
That's fine.
Hopefully
I'll just switch over to the speaker.
Okay, and let me know.
I can go with the flow.
Hey, this is what we do, right? We adapt.
That's right.
That's what it is. It happens. All right. Not every plan is perfect, but there's always a result to it, right?
No.
Do I just press on or off on this?
No, I'll take it back. I switched the input, so no one,
Okay.
that's off.
So we're talking about, thank you so much. Shout out to our techs and our AVs. So we talked about being a violinist, being a sibling, whether you're older sibling, younger sibling, being a part of leadership groups, 6, 7 classes, right? But also just, how many of you have social media? Right? Gotta keep up with social media, right? Like, how many of you are influencers on social media? Have like thousands of followers. Right? So, what kind of pressures come with the multiple hats that you wear? Right? And when I say that, so 3-season athlete, right? Big sister, right? What kind of pressure these students, right, getting ready to apply to college, right, thinking about going to college out of state, right? What pressures do you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
I feel like a big pressure for like one is like I'm also like I'm on a cheer team, for example. It's like as like a leader for also being a senior, you have to put on that like role model shoes to like lower classmen or like anyone in general to know like to show I'm a leader. You have to take those steps of responsibility and like encouragement, like showing people happiness, like all like these big criteria you have to definitely show and experience. And it's like even with like messing up, it's like installed or taught to us that you guys are leaders, you shouldn't mess up. But it's like even when you do mess up, like taking that stance and actually admitting to it and standing up for it and being like, yes, we did something wrong. But I know like that happens.
Absolutely, John.
So I find that a lot of times, like when I'm done completing a task, there's always something more to do, and it's really easy to get caught up in just like not giving yourself any break, which isn't good. Like for instance, some days I have a lot of schoolwork and I remember I have to like plan a club meeting for the next day, so it can be really stressful. But it's very important to give yourself some sort of break.
Yes.
So kind of like what Tati said, like being a leader. When you're in like a lot of the leadership groups or you're just like being a role model, you kind of feel like the pressures of like having to like not miss out on things, but there's certain things you can't like do or attend because you're supposed to be a leader, you're supposed to be a role model. You can't like act like the leader, but then like when you're your friends, you kind of like act in a different way.
You all touching some really good things.
Yeah, so I kind of going off what Josh and Tati were saying, I feel like at the end of the day, I kind of go home and I feel like, wow, like I've been on all day. Like you're on during your classes, you're trying to be a good student, but also socialize with your friends, and you're trying to like be an athlete and be a captain and be a teammate, and then go be a club leader or do whatever else you're doing. And so even if you just go through the whole school day and don't even go to anything after, you still kind of feel like, wow, like I just had to give like all of myself all day. And so yeah, it's definitely stressful, and kind of what Josh was saying, like just feel like it's so much and you never have like time to breathe or time to stop.
How many of us in the room and also on Zoom respond with your best emoji or your favorite emoji on Zoom? But how many of us in the room feel like we don't have enough hours in the day? Some people are putting their legs in their hands up, right? We talked about balance. We talked about sometimes you mess up, right? And we tend to forget that we're human, right? Like that's a part of us of a personal struggle and adversity that we challenge ourselves with is it's okay to make mistakes, right? Society, we always want the best for ourselves, we always want the best for others, but sometimes it's okay for us to accept, and I don't want to say failure, but accept understanding failure and how we come out of that, right? And sometimes in cheer, you try to do something like a stunt, something hard. Tumbling, right? You practice this tumble, right? You do this 4 times a day, and you go back. Then you're game mode, and all of a sudden the tumble's not as smooth as you want. Next thing you know, your mental, your psyche, your personal balance becomes disrupted because you're like, I did it perfect the entire time, and then when I had to show up, you're the only one that noticed you messed up, right? But then we put that pressure on us, right? You talked about across here finding balance and time. Like for me, I've learned, right, as a professional, right, who's been out of college for 10 years, I just recently started learning how to tell people no. And for you all here, right, like your time just goes. How much time do you actually spend on social media too? So, right? And social media can be positive and negative, right? Depending on how you see it, right? Some people consume social media to learn, but some people consume social media because it may be an outlet to say, I just did 4 hours of homework, right? Or hey, I just went and helped my sibling with their homework, right? Maybe I just need to laugh. Maybe I just need to know what's going on. Social media has also become an outlet for us to learn what's going on in the world as soon as possible, right? I still wonder why people get newspapers, believe it or not. Like it is very surprising to me because everything is so accessible. You can't even get a cell phone without a camera nowadays, right? I don't know who has a landline anymore, right? Like, and so, and I share that because those are the contributing factors to who we are as people, right? So for me, learning how to say no, it's because I started to realize and understand what stress and what anxiety looked like. So and Jake, I'll pass to you. Can you share what does stress and anxiety feel and look like to you?
For me, stress and anxiety definitely looks like I have a long list of tasks to do, colleges to apply to, school assignments, and it just overwhelms me so much. I can't even look at it. I'll just take a nap or scroll through my phone or just do anything to avoid it. And it's really about just like acknowledging that none of that is going to be helpful, and just gotta do the work, ask for extensions from teachers if I need it, or things like that. But yeah, it's just hard to tackle all the work. There's so much. So it's
Anybody else want to share what stress looks like, anxiety looks like, or feels like to you? No obligation.
Okay, yeah, I can talk. So I think for me, it feels like just having this like massive weight on me, kind of like Jake was saying, just so many things on you, and it just feels like, yeah, there's kind of like no way to get around it, because if you put something off, or if you take that mental health day from school, or skip a class to sleep in, then it's kind of like, okay, now I have like an assignment that I missed, and now I have all these things that I have to do. So definitely like that's what I feel like, very like heavy, like a lot of weight, like the stress and everything.
I kind of feel like for me too, it's just like also like at home responsibilities too, like dealing with family or like with the personal issues that like I have at home. So it's like dealing with taking care of my siblings and dealing with my family. And it's just also on top of like for me in my friend group, I'm like the mother. So I take on the responsibility of like we can say my mother calls me Mother Teresa. That's who I am. So I basically try making the whole world happy, and I don't put myself first. So I deal with the stress of trying to keep everyone else okay and staying on my academics and thinking about college and planning everything in all these clubs. And then like I don't think about me afterwards. I just keep moving, keep going. So
I want to thank you for sharing. Jake, you mentioned two things that I want to uplift: acknowledgement and how you are coping. Right. So acknowledgement. It's hard for us as human beings to acknowledge we need help. It's also hard for us to acknowledge that we're struggling with something. Maybe it's a pride thing. Maybe we just are unaware, don't know how to yet. Right. Those who have been in their careers, those who are entrepreneurs, those who are parents, siblings, caregivers, mentors, coaches, whatever it may be, right? Everybody has their value. Right? You bring value and substance to every room you walk into, every interaction and engagement you have. But you mentioned about acknowledgement, right? For me, it took a while to realize, wow, like I'm spending so much time pouring into other people's cups, filling them up, that I'm running on an empty tank. And that's what it sounds like some of you may be facing, right? And it's not necessarily like demeaning that you are, oh, I don't want to do this. And you're doing it because of who you are, right? You want to be the best sibling, you want to be the best student, the best, partner, the best teammate, the best leader, the best violinist, right? And so think about acknowledgement. Now, even as adults, right, folks who are not in your seat right now, but we have to deal with those pressures as well, right? So this is a learning for us as a community as a whole. More importantly, you mentioned about, if I need to ask for help, and I think that's a big step to how we start to stand against mental stress and anxiety, right? How we deal with that mental and that emotional breakdown, what I like to call finding your personal balance, right? Whatever that means, filling your cup up with the things you want to. Right? A mental health thing from school is never a bad thing, but, and I use the term but lightly in regards to, I missed my math class and I know there's an assignment due, right? So now you got a little peak and now you plateau, right? So, Jake, you talked about it, and Anaya, if I may, if you don't mind saying, how do you cope with, with stress, with anxiety? Like, who do you go to? What resources do you use? Right? Or for anyone here as well, if you don't have anybody you haven't, right? Like, what are some things you wish you had?
Okay, so I'm definitely guilty of not coping with stress correctly. But I think the one thing I do is like when I get those like really like overwhelming like, thoughts and feelings, that I just like write them down. And then like sometimes I'm able to like I'll like reread it, and then like I'll be like like okay, you don't have to worry about these things, but just like kind of look at what I wrote and like try to find a solution or try to find a way to like schedule a way to like fix like everything that's stressing me out. Just make a long list of the things I have to do and like figure it out that way. Then like keep me in like all of it.
Thank you. So you write stuff down. I was going to write something down. But, so you write stuff down, right, which is actually a really great practice, right? Writing something down, closing your notebook or your diary, whatever, your journal, your whiteboard, coming back to it and say, okay, let me take a step back, let me reset, refresh, and plan again to see how, you know what, maybe I don't need to complete this math homework today because it's not due till Friday, but I also know it's up there, right? Maybe instead of 15 minutes scrolling through my phone, right, maybe it's 15 minutes of me sitting down at the dinner table with my sibling to ask them how their day was, right? Writing stuff down is a great practice of how to cope. I've learned to write stuff down, even in the age of technology. Everywhere I go, I always say, bring something to write on, write with, and I always do. Who else? We'd love to hear more. John?
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. Whenever I'm stressed, because I have like a lot of assignments to do, I'll just like put them all on the schedule because it kind of maps out what's going on in my mind. And then like whenever I end up doing that, it doesn't end up ever being as much as I like had initially thought it was. Aside from that, when I'm stressed, I just do things that like I enjoy, like kind of take my mind out of it. Like I play the drums, I'll listen to music, or like I'll just engage in conversations with friends and family.
I would say for me, I'm still actually trying and still learning. So even though I'm like older, I'm still learning how to cope and manage things. I feel like as though I was younger, the environment I lived in was kind of taught to me like I don't need to talk about my emotions. I just don't need to talk about my feelings. It's just something you just move and you push on and deal with. You're fine. So I think for me, like I just actually got to the point that I learned that it is okay to talk to someone, and it is okay to reach out if I really do need it. So like for me, I'm still learning. I just took that step in myself to actually admit when I'm not okay. So
That's awesome. Anyone else? Jake?
For me, and this is somewhat of like a coping mechanism, but I'm really stressed out about things in the short term. I'll just look at things big picture and be like, okay, maybe a year from now, I could be going to my dream college, but if I'm rejected there, we go to that college, and then it gets to the point where I'm focusing so much on the long term that, I start assignments, start becoming late and, things like that. So it's really easy for me to resort to like the long term as opposed to like focusing on, the short term and like what's important for me to do like right now.
Thank you, I appreciate you. And that's a great segue because we talked about, Tatiana, you just mentioned, you know, you're still learning how to come in. And Jake, you said, you called it a flaw, right? I'm going to challenge you and say it's an opportunity to improve, not necessarily a flaw, right? There's always opportunities for us to improve. No weaknesses here, no defeats, no failures, right? Opportunities to learn, grow, and develop, right? And it's a big picture, though, right? And some people see the cup half full, some people see the cup half empty. For me, when you first get the cup, it's always empty, so you had to do something to fill it up the first half, right? You say big picture. Let's think of us being a piece of the puzzle, right? The only way you finish the puzzle is by looking at the big picture. But the only way you complete the big picture is by putting one piece at a time. Right? So maybe that is, like you said, sometimes it's like, oh, I started this assignment a little late, right? You go back, maybe writing it down may help with that, right? Or maybe understanding, hey, you know what, let me just take a break, step away, and come back to it. Maybe those are ways to do it. And I share that. First of all, show me some love. Everybody, show me some love up here. Let's give them a quick round of applause. So folks online, I hope you're able to hear us and you're getting some value. Please make sure you send your questions through and those on there are cards and notes on the table. Now we have the pleasure of adding on to our panel. We have a series of subject matter experts, community leaders, and educators, physicians, clinicians who are going to join us up here, and we're going to put the other piece of the puzzle to this, right? Think of us being in the circle, right? And you are all part of the circle, right? This is the village, the community that we have here, and we're going to continue to build on this. And so if I can ask my other panelists to please join us. So panelists, we can split on both sides. And what we'll do is I'm going to pass the mic this way, and I'll let you introduce yourself. Name, where you are, your title, and your favorite meal.
I'm Bishop Quandre, the pediatrician in town. I live in West Hartford, and my favorite meal is chocolate.
Hi, my name is Chris Dutton. I am the Clinical Director of Community and School Services at the Free Family Center here in West Hartford. I have a favorite meal. I just like food. I just like to eat.
Sorry about that.
No.
Think about anything right now. Right now. Just what would that be right now?
Wow. You know, I really like this pizza.
Okay. I like it. Swing around this way. By the way, for me, it would be white rice, seafood salad, and plantain. I realized I never shared mine. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Maxine Smith, and I'm a 7th grade counselor at Central Middle School in town. My favorite meal from Jamaica is ackee and saltfish with fried plantains, the sweet one. And it's like Josh, it's something you can eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's my favorite.
Right now.
And I'm having some when I get home.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Maria DePonte. I am a clinical psychologist and I work at Hartford Hospital at the Anxiety Disorder Center and Assisted Living. I am newer to Connecticut, but I'm currently from Farmington. And my favorite meal would have to be homemade lasagna, which I have in my fridge, so I will be having that tonight as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn Cambrella Noble. I'm an assistant principal at Concord High School. So happy to be in a great room with so many people that are interested in this topic. My favorite meal, so I'm from Chile originally, and my favorite meal would definitely be empanadas, and I would eat them for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here in person and online. It's our honor and pleasure to be here with you this evening. My name is Kim Ambrose. I'm one of the assistant principals at the Fall High School. And, I'm so fortunate to have everyone here, even on this panel, because I came in and asked for help a lot from all of the members here on the panel, and we encourage you to do the same thing. So we appreciate you being here. And one of my favorite meals, my parents are from Cuba. So I'd say some fried, steak, some plantains, and some white rice, and I could eat that all day every day.
Awesome. Well, Ms. Ames, you can hold on to I'll project. So thank you all for being here. Adding on to what our rising leaders had mentioned, we talked about coping, we talked about how to ask for help, finding balance. We also talked about some of the challenges where we don't feel like there's enough time in our day. Sometimes we haven't learned how to acknowledge it, and we're still learning that. What are some ways, being an educator, what are some ways that our community leaders that are in our audience and online, but also our educators and parents, what are ways that we can help meet our teenagers and our youth, our rising leaders, where they are in supporting dealing with mental health and challenges and anxiety?
Okay, so that's such a great question. What are the ways that we can help encourage our students, our children who are struggling with mental health or anxiety? And I would say, again, to lean into the school, we are here to support at any point that you feel that, I'm worried about something, right? I have a question. I'm not sure, where to go. Please turn to us. That it could be a simple phone call of calling the school counselor. If every student has a school counselor, and they can connect you with the right resources, whether it's in school or outside of school, because we have those supports. We're not, we don't know all of the answers, but we're certainly willing to help and support and connect you to the right people, whether it's in the school or in the community to help. We do have some resources that we left here on the table to support your learner and their journey here, but also knowing that we don't have everything right together too, and we struggle and we have concerns, and we also lean in on one another, and we hope that you would do that as well. It's finding who that trusted adult is in your child's life that they can connect with, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a coach, an administrator, as well as, parents and caregivers having a trusted adult that they feel that they can lean on and ask questions when there are concerns that are arising.
Thank you.
So I'm going to echo what Mrs. Ambrose said, that for us in our roles in the schools, it's to really continue to partner with parents and caregivers. And if it's a small concern for you, it's a big concern for us, because we want to make sure that you're getting the support that you need. And we also find supports for parents, families, and we have a lot of community organizations that work with us. So if there is something that you're concerned about, push it up to us. If it ends up being nothing, that's okay. But what we always want to do is make sure that you have a concern that's addressed, and you can get the support that you need, and understand that we're here to partner with you, and that for us, your child's well-being is the most important thing to us. And for us, for you to feel that you're getting the support as well, and you're getting the resources that you need, is really also critically important for us. So don't ever feel like by reaching out, you're asking too much. This is what our roles are, and we're really here for the well-being of your children. I would also add that it's really important to talk about mental health, and it's really important to talk about well-being, and it's also really important to talk about feelings and emotions, and for adults to model. Like when you say, hey, I took on too much, I shouldn't have done that. That's really good conversations, and really great for kids to see you saying no to things and to see you balancing things, so you're doing modeling best practice for them as they're learning and growing.
So I actually have another question. Thank you. Dr. Maria, so some parents or caregivers and guardians, they may not know what signs, right? Or may not know how to ask, right? And say, well, I know it's a tough time because my son, my daughter, my children are applying for a school. Or, hey, I'm driving my son to his high school. He's not going to see me cry, because it's hard for me to share emotions sometimes, right? But I know when I leave, I'm going to be more worried about him than he will be. Right? What advice do you have, being, in your profession, in your space, what advice for parents and caregivers and folks who are guardians do you have for when, sometimes we may not see, the signs may not necessarily come in physical ways, right? What best practices, what things should we look out for when we are looking to support our rising leaders?
That's a great question. It's usually like one of the first topics we cover in therapy with families, is asking kids like what they notice, like we did with our family earlier, like what things are happening for you inside, but also looking for kind of patterns that are happening. So if you're noticing like shifts in their behavior, so they're much more cranky than usual. Cranky is a sign for lots of things. It's for being tired, for being depressed, for being anxious, being stressed. If it becomes a pattern, if it's like for 10 minutes, it's fine. Like, that's very typical. But when you're starting to notice patterns where that the stress is getting in the way of things, so if they're not able to finish their homework, or they're not wanting to do things like hang out with their friends, they want to quit the sports or clubs that they're a part of just because they're, they don't like it anymore. If it's becoming like across the board, in areas of school and social life and family, I think it's those patterns that you really want to look for. And then, like I said, it's kind of shifts in mood and what they're saying too. Because kids are pretty vocal for the most part and saying like, I don't like this, or I'm unhappy about this, or this person irritates me. So I think really paying attention as opposed to just kind of blowing it off of like, they're just a teenager, they're just kind of moody today, and paying attention to what they're saying. Because I think a lot of times kids are saying it, even if they're not using the words anxious and stuff.
Ms. Maxine, are you able to elaborate as well, being in your seat as a counselor at the middle school level?
Yeah, sure. And I always say we all have some stress or anxiety. We all have it, right? If anybody said I've never been stressed, then that's not true. All right, but like the doctor said, when it becomes a situation where you just cannot do the normal things, hang out with your friends like you normally do, that's when we know that you need to seek support, seek outside help, or just contact your counselor like myself, because again, we all have stressors. I grew up in a culture where mental health is not really talked about, but we're getting better. I know growing up in my household, we never talked about it, and now my parents are just so supportive of my own children now that their grandparents are coming to help. So I think we're getting better at that. One advice I give to parents, and I've learned it as a parent myself, my kids are now adults, is listen more, right? So use the opportunity to listen more. When your teen is saying, I'm stressed, and many times you want to solve it for them, you want to finish their sentences, the older they get, we need to listen more, especially if the opportunity presents itself when they're really talking a lot. So listen more, start with that listening and hearing, and then from there, seek that help. And like Ms. Amber said, contact your counselor, your child's counselor, or whoever that trusted adult is at school, whether it's a teacher or an assistant principal or a counselor. And I'll say to my parents, start with me. And if I can help you, I certainly will. If I can't, I will find someone that can help you. So again, safety of your children and their well-being is our priority.
Thank you. We talked about listening. Listening is important, right? Listening is a skill, right? Sometimes we're talking to folks, right, and somebody's talking to us and like, oh yeah, we're listening. Our youth, our rising leaders will watch what we do more than they will listen to what we say. So if this is what we're considering listening when they're talking to us and we're texting, they feel like, okay, they're listening, they don't have our undivided attention. Right? So listening is important. And I always try to encourage folks, even at my role at Intuit and my role as Chief Engagement Officer at the Taylor Compass, I always try to commit myself to listening wholeheartedly in a neutral space. I go in there with no side bias, no presumptions. I'm there to listen for understanding and clarification. If I don't, I will raise my hand and ask questions. Right? That being said, we're going to hand it over this way. So the question I have for you both is, how can, when we're thinking about, we talked about how parents can navigate or kind of pick up small cues that, when there's some sort of anxiety or stress that their youth may be facing or challenged with. But in your space, Dr. Israq, how can families navigate the process? Because a lot of times it's, hey, I want to find help, I just don't know how. Right? So if you may be able, and Ms. Benny as well being part of the Bridge program in your space, if you both can talk about how to navigate the process, right? And maybe it starts with asking the question.
Yes, navigating the process is really difficult at times for parents. I think it starts with recognizing the problem. Is my child, is this normal anxiety or normal sadness? Or is it more than that? Do I need to be more than supportive? And I think the questions parents need to ask, is this
limiting or impairing my child's life? Or am I changing my life to accommodate my child's, patterns? Like somebody's anxious to go to school every Monday, so I will just keep time in my schedule so we can accommodate that. That is an unconscious accommodation that the parents might make, but it needs to be handled. That is, that's a sign that your child needs more help. And I would say that the first person to after the school counselor, and the school is a very important part of the picture because they know your child almost as much as you do, and in some cases better. And after that, gather information, and then I would say yes, look to your pediatrician. They should be able to help you, and if they can personally help you, they should be able to navigate you through the system in Connecticut, which, as we were discussing before, is better than many other places. I will say that, having navigated through here and then compared New York and other states, it's pretty good. Most pediatricians will have access to referral sources, but also, given the incredible increase in incidence, many doctors and I think pediatricians are comfortable starting medication that is needed. Therapy is always first. Always best to start with therapy, but sometimes you need to do both. And if medication is needed, you may hear that to get to a psychiatrist or somebody, could be months. And who has months to wait for that? So many pediatricians, including myself, I'm very comfortable prescribing medications to children when and if they need it. But always therapy is first. I'm very responsible.
Thank you. Mr. Dutton.
Thank you. So as a clinical social worker and therapist by training, I would say it's never a bad time to talk to somebody about what's going on in your life. In fact, it's often really good to have that existing relationship with somebody before things start to get tumultuous and challenging. To that end, I'd echo what Ms. Smith said about, reach out to your school. This came up when we were having our planning conversations. Sometimes these conversations, mental health, I think we're getting a lot better in our culture about talking about it, in society at large. But families still want to keep things private sometimes, and there still is a bit of a stigma for seeking support. And it's okay to ask what's normal, right? Or is this out of the ordinary? But the easiest way to do that is to ask somebody that you trust and have an existing relationship with, right? And so, one, you can find a therapist before you really, truly need it. That's not tenable for everybody at all the time. But every single kid in town has a school that they can be connected with. And I encourage every child that I come in contact with and every parent that I come in contact with to find at least one trusted adult in that building, right? Who is it that you can go to and talk to, right? You can probably ask your child who that person is for them, and hopefully they have somebody. And if they don't, I would encourage them to find somebody, whether it's a coach, a school counselor, the band teacher, whoever. It doesn't have to be somebody in the, quote, role to talk about what's going on. It's just an adult that can help them to get connected. But I say the same thing for parents. Find somebody in your child's school that you feel comfortable having a conversation about or with, about something that's not necessarily an issue right this minute, right? Find somebody that you can say, hey, Joey hasn't been sleeping that great. I'm starting to get worried, right? And disrupted sleep is really complicated, right? We've had a lot of things happen through the pandemic, and into now we're trying to readjust. Kids are playing video games at night or social media, etc. But sometimes kids want to be asleep and they can't. That's an issue. Ask somebody, is this a problem right now? If it is, then it's time maybe to seek some more help. The bridge is, I think, pretty well known in West Hartford, and we're always available. It's rare that we have more than a couple of weeks of a wait to get in touch with somebody at any of our clinics. There's 2 clinics right here in West Hartford where we have people that you can talk to about what's going on in your life. There's an abundance of private therapists in West Hartford. Everybody's insurance has different ways of identifying who you can see, and most insurance companies will have a list of people that are covered in a given area. There's other agencies like the Bridge, there's the Village, there's Wheeler, there's Klingberg. We all do similar things in similar ways. I will advocate for the Bridge. I think we offer great services, but we all go through the same sort of training. We all can offer the same type of support. If it's not a great fit, there's somebody that is a good fit. But ask that question. Make that connection. I think a lot of times we're talking about what are we going to do in response, but the more proactive you can be and the more connections that you can get for you and your children, the more things that they can plug into to find that support as they need it, I think the better off.
So now here's where the community comes together, right? We've heard from our rising leaders, we've heard from our subject matter experts, like we have subject matter experts. Everyone here is a subject matter expert in some way, shape, or form, right? They all have their own value, they bring their own empowerment in some way, shape, or form. And so this is, I say, challenge in a positive way, right? For us, how do we work together, right? How many of us have a specific nail tech or a specific mechanic we go to because we have a good relationship? How many of us have a specific chiropractor or a trainer that we go to, right? We've established those relationships, right? So now I challenge and encourage you to make sure that if you didn't know about the Bridge, just give them a call. Hey, can I get 15 minutes with Mr. Dutton? He was on the panel that I attended, right? Just get to know what services they offer. How about you all say, hey, I can be encouraging. Hey, Mr. Dutton, I was attended the panel. Do you need volunteers? Right? Because sometimes helping others may be an outlet for us to combat that mental health, that strain, that anxiety, right? If we are comfortable building relationships with our mechanic, with our barbers, with our nail techs, with our bakery shop, right? Let's be comfortable building relationships with those that spend a good amount of time with our kids, right? Those, whether it's an after-school program, whether it's your baseball coach, whether it's your violinist, or your head violinist, or, you know, whether it's just somebody who's a family friend, right? Let's encourage to have these conversations. But I always, when I was at Covenant Prep, a thing that I always used to brag about was I used to have family challenges. And it would say, this week, I want the family to sit down and have one meal together this week. Doesn't matter what you have. You can pop popcorn and watch a movie. But I want one meal together, and I want you to talk about what you're doing. You start to learn about what your kids are going through, what our teenagers are going through. But your kids and your teenagers are also learning about what you're going through, right? My son's not old enough to talk yet, right? He mumbles at me and he runs the house, right? But my 13-year-old, she's always like, hey, you've been traveling a lot. Like, what do you do when you travel? And I sit back and I'm like, I've actually never told her. And she's always like surprised at the cities that I've been fortunate and blessed to go to, right? But I share that because as a community, we may never know what someone is going through. We may be able to be the bridge to say, hey, no pun intended, right? But hey, have you met Miss Maxine, who's the counselor? Hey, well, my child is a sixth grader. It's okay. Go to Miss Maxine. She can point you in the right direction, right? Or hey, or I only go to the assistant principals because, you know, whenever I'm in trouble or whenever there's a big, no, their doors are open. Go knock on their doors. Go to the front desk and say, hey, I'd love to be able to speak to Miss Ambrose or Miss Jackson, right? And as a community, right, we have to start asking these questions, right? For my rising leaders up here, do you have someone that you trust at your schools that you don't talk about grades, you don't talk about sports or music or arts or anything, but you just go and have a conversation with them? Is there someone that you have trusted at your school? All right. You probably have a really good best friend too that they probably hold you accountable and vice versa. You probably hold them accountable. And there's certain things that, you know, they do that bothers you, and right? But at the same time, does your parents know who your best friends are? Like, that's important, right? Because we can be builders of encouragement. We can be builders of self-esteem, self-respect, but we can also be builders of stewards who are going to be our future leaders, right? And only because someone is dealing with it now doesn't mean it has to be a long progression of it, right? Here you have literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 12 resources. Because even our rising leaders are just as much subject matter experts in dealing with the pressures of social media, dealing with the pressures of being an older sibling, the youngest sibling, being a cheer captain, right? Getting ready to apply to school, right? Or looking at things in a big picture to say, hey, I really want to accomplish this, but I know these are the steps I need to take. Like, so for us, for me, this team up here, we are encouraging one another, right? I said at the beginning of the meeting, we already took the first step, and that's us having this conversation. You are all listening with intent. You're listening with the heart and the mind. Because when you leave here, right, your ride home may be a different conversation. You may say, hey, that was actually really encouraging. Or, hey, you know what, I am a champion of self-esteem and self-respect and empowerment, right? I do want to be mindful of time, right? Because we can sit up here and talk for hours, right? And so I do want to make sure that we get to the questions that may be on the table. But I do want to go to our virtual family, those that, if there are any questions on there. And by the way, team, anybody up here who wants, if we happen to miss anything that you want to mention, please let me know. The microphone can definitely be passed around.
Yeah, so we do have a question from our virtual folks, and this is for the students, and it is, how can parents help their kids when they're feeling stressed? So what do you suggest parents do?
All right, so we'll go Anna and then we'll go to Tati.
Yeah, so I've found with my parents and with just like the adults in my life, especially the ones I look up to, something that's really helpful for me when I'm feeling stressed is for them to say, like, it's okay to fail at this, and it's okay to not do amazing and to not be the best, and we're going to still love you regardless, and we still support you regardless, because I think a lot of the time in high school, you kind of fear failure, and you feel like you have to be the best at everything you're doing. And so just to have the people that you really respect, like your parents and your coaches and your teachers, tell you that it's actually going to be okay if you don't do well at this, that's been really helpful for me to kind of put things into perspective and realize that the most important thing about me is not like the grade I get on a test or how I do at a track meet. It's much more about like who I am.
Love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, like just like what you're saying, like the reassurance of like, and like especially not like I know like my mother, like my stress becomes her stress. So like when she knows like I'm like not doing so good or something, she ends up stressing about it, and then she like goes down my throat about it, and then she's like yelling at me, but she's yelling at me because she doesn't want me to do that. When it just happens, you know. So and I think it's just like taking those moments of like before you speak to us, just like reel it in real quick, and then throw in the I love you, but get that, you know. So have like those conversations, and then just also even taking those reminder days and just like double checking for like how are you doing, or like if you need anything. If you don't, what do you want? Like something just to keep us going, and just knowing that you're here for us.
I'd like to ask.
Absolutely.
This was a paragraph, right?
Yes.
So kids will model your reaction to stress. How you react to stress or anxiety, that's how kids work. And it starts at early, age 5 or below, and will continue. So there is something to be said of modulating your responses. There's no harm in sharing and acknowledging that you're stressed. This is stressful for you, but how you deal with it, how you children will deal with it.
Just to get back on that and add a really great way to take that moment to modulate your own reaction is just to, when your child comes to you with something or you notice something and you start to feel it bubbling, just take a minute and ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Before you do anything else, how am I feeling about the situation right now? Check in with yourself, know how you're feeling. And then the next question you ask yourself is, what does my child need, feel, or want in this moment? And then choose how you're going to respond. And I think the more that you can practice that, the less likely you are to start having an emotional response or emotional reaction and having a more thoughtful response to when your child is stressed out.
Yes. Thank you all. These are great responses. Keep the questions coming.
I was also going to add that never underestimate the power of small moments, whether it's driving to the grocery store or driving around. There's a lot of, I have both my children are in high school, and there's a lot of times that our best conversations are in the car driving somewhere, that it's a 10, 15-minute ride. It doesn't always have to be a serious 2-hour talk about mental health. It can be small check-ins along the way. Also, if you don't know the language they're speaking, and I don't mean just TikTok or Instagram or streaks, what you want to do is you want to know what they're talking about. You want to know what the topics they're interested in. You want to learn about what interests them, because that's going to be your entry point to really continue to connect in a way that's not meaningful, so you can have the power and leverage to connect on the meaningful things that you need to.
Absolutely.
I was going to add on, like, something that I tell, like, the parents that I work with is have those check-ins. So it doesn't have to be like this very formal, like, how do you feel and how do you feel and how do you feel, but it just having those, like, very casual check-ins and asking directly, not just like, how was your day? Because that's about their day. That's not about how they're feeling right now. So using very clear language of, like, how are you feeling? And if they say tired, I say tired is a physical state. It's not a feeling. What emotion are you having right now? So asking very clearly about the emotions. And asking opens the door. So sometimes kids will think that you don't care, since it's a hard time. So opening that door for them, even if they don't respond to you the first few times you ask, just always show that that door is open for them to come to you and talk about their emotions.
And also, speaking of open, asking questions. So, like for the middle school, so a lot of parents will say, my child's not talking to me. Yeah, I'm asking how's school. Good. And they're just not. So it's asking specific questions, you know. What did you do in that science lab that you had today? I know you guys were working in something, whatever it was. You know, what was that like, you know? Because they're always going to say it's good, it's okay, you know, so that. And it doesn't always, and if you're not going to ask about emotion, that's fine, but just start the conversation by asking about any questions as well.
Right, that's a great uplift that Ms. Maxine, in regards to understanding how we're asking questions, right? Encourage full conversation. Right, I ask my daughter all the time, you were at school for 6 hours today, you didn't learn anything? I gotta go speak to the principal. Like, there's something wrong here, right? What did you learn at school today? What wowed you? What made you smile? What was something that bothered you? Those are the questions I've learned that, but I also respond to her. And this is a learning for me because I still catch myself. She was like, oh, how was work? Oh, work was all right. Then I go back and say, excuse me, work was great. I had these meetings, you know, we were able to accomplish this, or it was kind of tough today. Right? She'll come and give me a hug. She was like, I'm sure you did a great job. Her words of affirmation were important to me, right? Just as they are for her. And what I want to highlight is sometimes we say some things is just or only. Let's try to remove those words to avoid downplaying something. Oh, it's just a little incident. No, it's not. It's an incident, right? You're not just an assistant principal. You're not just a physician, right? You're not just a junior, just a senior. I'm only a senior. No, you are a senior. You embrace that. Right? Hey, this is not only or just an incident, this is an incident. Let's talk about it. Let's explore this together. Let's collaborate. Right? When we put the words only and just, we kind of diminish the value of it, right? For me, being a public speaker and connecting with folks, I always said, I only was able to talk to 10 people or touch 10 people through my words. Folks are like, only? Like, you just spoke to 1,000 people and you got 10 people to listen and come back to you? You did what you needed to. All you need to do is touch one person, right? And I've learned to remove just and only because I never want to downplay something. Like, hey, we just won second place. It was only a regular tournament. No, it was a good tournament. You played well. Here's what it is. Right? So continue to encourage, again, those words, right? How we intentionally listen, asking questions for clarification so we can understand. I used to come down on my daughter hard all the time. Pick your shoes up. Don't do it. You're better than that, right? And I was always like, wow, she's doing volleyball, she's doing dance, and she comes home and I'm just giving her more demands. I didn't even ask her if she ate today, right? So those are things that, for us, I encourage us to be mindful of. Questions, y'all? Yes?
I'm going to start. My name is Rosa. I'm a mother of 3. I work for Windsor Public School as a paraeducator. And my question is, what is a strategy to help a student or child express their emotion? I have issues sometimes when I'm like, oh, how you feel? Talk to me about this. And then they start, but then in the middle of expressing their stuff, they shut down. What can you help me with that?
Absolutely, great question. We'll touch it. You two are going to answer first, and then we'll spread the love out that way. But I just want to make sure, like, we capture the question as well online. What are some tips and advice to get students to express feelings and emotions?
Yeah.
Is that what it was? Thank you, Rosa. Thank you for what you do too.
Okay, this is just from my personal experience, but sometimes it's like sometimes it's like having a relationship with a person first and then being able to slowly open up. So it's like if like a random teacher came up to me like, you know, like how are you doing? Like I might tell her, but I might like not tell her anything compared to like a teacher who like I have a good relationship with. So it's just like your relationship with a child or how comfortable they feel. Or sometimes like again personally like there's certain things that I feel like scared to share with someone. Because like I'm scared like how they would react and like how would they think of me or something.
Thank you for sharing. Relationship building, that's important.
Yeah, like building a relationship and also just kind of like in like those moments, I even go through it too when I'm talking to people, and it's just like I realize when they kind of stop for a second, I look back and then I say, if you really don't want to talk about it, you don't have to. When I say that, you're good. So keep talking. But then it's just also like, oh, I mean, I know what you're thinking about, and then I kind of talk about a little bit about me. So like you hear my story too, so you understand. I'm not going to do exactly what you're telling me, but like I know something, so understand I can be that source of open for you to talk to.
I know we like to encourage conversations, dialoguing, but there are times like today, for example, I had a student that was really upset, crying, and stressed, and she was not in a position to talk to me, but she still wanted to share, so she wrote it. You know, so sometimes, you know, again, I prefer this too, but it just worked better for her today. Then after she wrote several lines, and she started to talk little by little. So sometimes we have to kind of meet our kids, you know, where they're more comfortable.
I agree fully. Most of the kids that I see don't want to talk about their feelings, even though that's my job with them. So I have to get really creative. So I'll like do, okay, what color are you feeling today? And then I'll be like, what does that color mean to you? And then they end up telling me what they're feeling. But I'll say like, what color are you? What animal are you feeling today? And describe why that animal is what you're feeling. I think having them write down their feelings or draw pictures of their feelings. Sometimes it just gives them another way to be able to communicate what's going on in their head, especially if they don't have the word, because it's a really complicated feeling that maybe isn't just mad, sad, happy. And they're like, I don't actually know the word for what all of the feelings that are happening for me.
One of the pieces that I started with some students is just having, and I did this with my own kids when they were in middle school, is having a journal where I would ask them questions and they would respond. But doing that and starting it and like going out and picking out a journal that they want and doing something where they want to continue to interact with me. And so it starts with small questions and then it goes into bigger questions. But we have journals of years from the kids responding and me responding to them. And then now I do it with the students I work with. And it's really helpful for students that need just more process time. A lot of our multilingual students, I have them speak Spanish and read a couple languages, so it's also helpful for students to be able to process if they speak other languages. I think it's a really great strategy for them to be able to kind of process how they need to first.
And something for me that I've done that's made me a better partner is sometimes I take my coach and my mentor hat off and I ask my girlfriend, hey, you're sharing something with me? Do you want me to listen or are you looking for a response? Before, I used to just be one way. Oh, you know what? Here's a suggestion. Here's a bit. And she would tell me, like, I just wanted you to listen. And I'm like, thank you for letting me know. So now I go into conversations trying to build empathy and sympathy by asking those questions for clarification. Hey, thank you for sharing with me. Would you like me to respond or are you just looking for me to listen? right? And it's just a genuine, respectful question to ask. And sometimes our kids just want us to listen. Like sometimes our peers just want us to listen. Sorry, Mr.
No, thank you. That's actually that's a really great suggestion. But just to piggyback on what Ms. Smith and Dr. Fonte said, two things that I was going to say that pull on that a little bit is sometimes just sitting, right? So Ms. Smith had the student write a little bit, but sometimes just being present is enough, and it's comforting. But in an age-appropriate manner, when they can't find that language to talk about the feelings, I really like the what the animal are you feeling on color. I think that's great. I'm going to steal that in my own practice. But also, what can sometimes work, especially if they're starting to talk and then they kind of shut down because they lose the words and they don't really know. I think sometimes if you can kind of tell where it's going, or maybe there's a couple of feelings that you're maybe identifying there, suggesting a couple of feeling words, or maybe I'm hearing that it sounds like you're feeling kind of anxious about this. I would be feeling anxious about that, or I might be feeling worried about that, because maybe anxious isn't the right word for them in that moment, right? Because worried and anxious, they kind of mean the same thing, but they feel a little different, right? But in that situation, I feel this way. Does that sound right, or does that sound wrong? And so making some suggestions. You don't want to plant the feeling in them, but really, if you're hearing what they're saying, you can put the word out there. Because emotions are hard, they're complicated, right? And emotional intelligence is really challenging to develop, right? And so giving them that suggestion and a couple of different suggestions for them to choose from can be really helpful.
Great question. Yes, ma'am.
I wrote down my question.
That's perfect.
My name's Eileen. I am a parent, but I'm also a team leader. And a lot of what I experience at home, I experience with managing people right now, like this post-COVID environment. And in this post-COVID world, with all this personal, social, educational, familial, societal pressures, and it's all of that, every day. What are you hearing is working for kids who are dealing with a lot of isolation right now? Anxiety, depression, who don't know how to cope, or more importantly, engage. Like, as a parent, you can say, join something, do something, but when kids are feeling isolated, the last thing they want to do is walk into a room of strangers. So what's working? Having them volunteer, work with animals. Like, I need tools. I need to know what to do to get them, if they don't feel like they're not high functioning students that are leaders. What about these kids that are hopeless, helpless, hopeless, and they're trying to get through the day, and there's a lot of these kids. What is working?
Yeah, so thank you, Ms. I just want to make sure we captured the question correctly. What are we hearing and seeing that has worked for those students who may not be as outgoing, who may not be as engaged or involved, coming back from a 2.5-year hiatus of isolation, where some may feel was a space of comfort, right, to then enter what we are now calling the renewed normalcy, right? Is that what your question was?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Dunn, you can start.
Yeah, I had the microphones on. It's two very quick things that I really wanted to get from this number of things to say. But one is, I think, as adults and caregivers and treatment providers and just people who care about kids, I think we're their hope sometimes, right? And so I try not to think of anybody as in a hopeless situation. They might be feeling that way, but so it's my job to be that way, right? And the other thing is, loud and clear, they don't want to walk into a room full of strangers. That's terrifying. It could be terrifying for adults, right? So do it, right? Let's do this together. Let's engage with this together and sort of break the ice a little bit. It can be helpful. Finding exactly what to do can be challenging, but whatever you might want to engage in, invite them to engage, or find something to do together that might be new.
And then to add on, it was interesting. Go ahead.
Okay, so I started like in high school, like when COVID was over, I went to college, but I didn't know anyone, and so like, I kind of really just like got to there, just like went home with learning. But I think it's probably like different for other people, but I think it was like kind of like just to be like, okay, like, you have to just like do it. And so like it was the encouragement from people around to be like, if it's gonna be like awkward, it's gonna be weird, like you just like do it, just like put yourself out there, join a club or join a sport, like you don't have to be good. Like just do it and like create that circle or just that environment for yourself, and then like give you like some confidence. But I think it's just like the encouragement of like the people around you saying like just do it, like, or sometimes it's even just like the kids in the school too, just like if you see a kid that's new, like you don't have to speak to their name, but just say hello, say hi, make them feel like welcome, like because they're in like a new space, new environment, they're not like, because they were comfortable, they're not comfortable.
Absolutely. It's like, do it and do it. Right? I really like both those. My nephew's a big video gamer, and I used to tell him all the time, you're spending way too much time video gaming, doing this, you're wasting your time. And one day I sat down with him and I asked him, why do you like the video games? He was like, because I'm better than most of the people I play against, and this is something I'm good at. So it started to, me and his parents and I were sitting down saying, hey, like, if this is his avenue, let's support it. We can limit 7-8 hours of video game play, but let's encourage it because he's getting something out of it, right? And even when you're managing a team, right, it's important to really understand, like, hey, are you comfortable working in a group? If someone says, no, I'm not. Okay, let's see if we can find an alternative, right? Because you have value, right? You bring value to this, and this is what we want to encourage and make sure we implement. So yes, like being able to meet them when, and I know it's tough, especially being a team. I run a sales org of 800 people, right? And it's tough because people are on West Coast, East Coast, different languages. And for me, I'm trying to meet them where they're, and I'm learning from them. At the same time, I'm encouraging folks, but not obligating or forcing encouragement on them, right? If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I was actually going to say something similar to what we just talked about with the video games. I think a lot of the time, like, kids, and I think this has like always been the case, have like really different interests from their parents, and a lot of things parents can't really understand. So I think kind of just as a parent, knowing that it might not be something you get right now, but kind of still diving into it, like you were saying with the video games. Maybe like the kid loves a certain like kind of TV show or loves like Broadway musicals, something that like you would never think was interesting originally. Kind of just going and doing that with them and trying to find groups in the community or some show to go to try and get them involved, I think can be really beneficial because you're kind of speaking with them on their level and kind of connecting with them in a place where they're already comfortable and where they already might be like an expert, and so they can kind of share that with people.
For me, as I think about it, as like leaders or like as students or like adults, to me, body language is really important. So looking at like me, I'm a very outgoing, upbeat, crazy type person, right? But like I could see a person and they're very shy. Like they clearly are not like a person that's like me. And I know like to me, if I go and approach them with that type of energy, that's already going to be like, okay. So like I think to me, like as a teacher too, like when we get a new student, we're automatically like, oh my god, hi, how are you? And like really hyper. But if you like can like if you lower our tone or go to like their type of energy too and drop down and actually go to like a calm like, hi, how are you? Like trying to get to their level to create that personal interest for them to see like, okay, there's someone I can vibe with and they can understand me. I think that is like the body language is like really important.
I want to thank everyone for these excellent, questions, your bravery to speak and talk about some questions or concerns, because I think all of us have those same exact questions. But what I was going to say is a lot of what, everyone in the panel said and echo that our focus really is on, self-efficacy, helping students believe in themselves and believe that they can achieve to do well. And I think a lot of that starts with that trusted adult, right? I do a lot of clubs and programs and activities, both Jocelyn and I, Conrad and Paul, to increase student voice, right? And some of them may not love what the program or activity is, but they love connecting with us, right? So it's building those relationships and differentiating the way that they can be involved. Like even today in this panel, some students are able to be observers, others are able to be leaders and talk about the concerns that they're facing in high school. And that's what we want to provide for all of our students, right? Our collective efforts, right, to best support them. And we really believe in creating these opportunities for students, because then we know that whether it's opportunities to support their social emotional learning, or their opportunities to be involved in the way that's comfortable for them, we know that achievement will follow. So we are very excited to have these opportunities for kids and meet them where they're at. If they're concerned about going to a new club or activity, I may walk, with them, or have their friend walk with them to attend, or maybe a link leader that we have at both, Paul and Connor to help them. That's one part, and I think as well, if you're finding that they're having a difficulty being connected or staying connected, identifying what those activities might be in the school or even outside of the school to support them and their efforts to get connected. So I think through these connections and these opportunities, students start to feel more comfortable and getting out of their comfort zones. Even I always kind of talk about this as well, but as the students who come in because they maybe had a violation of one of our policies, students always leave the office with either like a field trip form or an opportunity to go to a club or activity because I see the potential in you and I want you to use some of those behaviors for the good. We had students in detention today, and we had our first student of color group for males. So there was a couple of the students, I grabbed them and said, I really should come to this club meeting today in lieu of that detention, and then we can reschedule. So there's always trying to find that opportunity where students can strive, and once they see that we believe in them, they want to rise to that occasion as well.
And Ms. Eileen, you being a team leader, you're in your position because you are in a space where you can influence and develop others, right? I think a sense of belonging is probably what you've already shared for yours. And those two, the parents that are working here, the community leaders, the parents, right, the nurses and those in any field, right? To me, the three biggest things are a sense of belonging, a sense of impact, and a sense of ownership, right? People want to feel like they belong there, whether they're outgoing like we are, whether they're very quiet, right? There's still a space for you here, right? A sense of ownership, right? They want to make sure they can be a part of something, but they also have the ability to own what they're doing, right? I may not be the most outspoken one, but I can do really great graphic design, right? And then a sense of impact, seeing that presentation and say, hey, you know what, Ms. Eileen, because of you, that graphic design looks really good and it's presented to 1,000 people and we touched 10 people, right? And so hopefully we were able to answer your question and give some additional insights and best practices. Yes, absolutely.
I just want to add one more thing specific. It's also giving back, right? So finding what your child's interests are or is, and if they're interested in maybe both of you together volunteering somewhere and helping someone, because kids may not be ready yet to join, that activity at school, like you said, too many people in there, but maybe one-on-one with you, you're okay going to a soup kitchen or, volunteering somewhere where they're helping someone else that's in need. I find like at my school, there are times I have kids that have a lot of challenges, and they see themselves as leaders, but when I put them in a role of helping someone, helping a younger child or helping out in our special needs area, they really shine because they have that self-gratitude and, so it's finding that specific thing also, that's voluntary.
Kind of what you said about the sense of belonging. I think kids feel judgment in things that they want to do, or they feel like people aren't going to support everything they want to do. So like an example is like I was in a mall and shoe store, and a lot of times I'll see a kid come in and pick up a shoe, and their parent will make a face and be like, "You want those?" And the kid be like, "Oh no, I don't want those." They'll change for the shoes their parents want. So the kid like wants to feel like they're not going to be judged, and they're going to have like support and whatever they like, whatever they need to.
That's a great one. I think we have room for one more question before we open it up for, and we'll be here, y'all, so please feel free, but we do have, are there any other questions that came through our virtual family? Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Rosie.
What do you suggest for someone, a child that has an eating disorder? Clearly they have anxiety and they tend to eat, but it comes to where they're becoming sneaky and hiding all of it. What are the suggestions on helping the child?
That's a great question. I'm going to repeat it. What advice, and I'm going to lean on our subject matter experts in the fields, with a child or someone who has an eating disorder, where that leads to sneakiness, where that leads to, kind of, okay, let me make sure I do stuff so nobody else sees it. I'm going to go downstairs and get water at 10 o'clock at night, and it's, it sounds like I'm talking about my daughter a little bit, right? Because we've had that. And she was going through it. My girlfriend's 6 feet and my daughter's 5'10", and she's in the 8th grade. So there's height all over the place. But she had a growth spurt, and we were challenged with that. And for us, it was kind of like, do we put an alarm on the fridge? Do we cut back on snacks? So that's a great question. I also am going to be all ears and listening to whoever it may be.
You want to go first? So anxiety is sure part of the eating disorder. I think if you're really concerned about health first, I think seek out services. That's like eating disorders can be very complicated, and treatment for it can be really supportive, not just for the child, but the entire family. So there's a whole team that can get involved. So the pediatrician, for example, a psychologist, psychiatrist, family therapist, and they can really fully support the whole system, because things can happen when sneakiness happens, and I think the first priority is health for sure, because it can lead to detrimental health. So I want to pass it over too, but I think accessing services, because it could be like a larger problem underneath, like OCD or anxiety or depression. It can lead to a lot of other, or might occur at the same time with a lot of mental health issues. So if there is like a genuine concern about eating, for sure.
I would say that if the child is beginning to have food or sneak food, then it is definitely time to seek help. And perhaps other steps would be taken to avoid that. But if it's gotten to that point, then it is something you need that service, because there's a lot of anxiety there. And as you said, the whole family is
I wanted to add that, often when you think about eating disorders, we think about body image and social pressures. Sometimes it's about other things as well, the anxiety, the control, things like that. It's not my area of expertise. We have a subject matter area expert at the Bridge, named Bella Landazzo. If you're interested, we can help you make that connection. It's something that's at that point. But I would encourage, whenever there's eating involved, the doctor should be involved as well to ensure that there's no health issue being involved.
Awesome. These were amazing questions, and I said we're going to be here, till they kick us out. But overall, again, I would like to thank all of our amazing superhumans who are up here, our panelists, for being up here, for sharing your stories, for coming in this brave space. This is a safe space, right? It's a place that houses a lot of our educators, our parents, our students and families that come in. So it's already a safe space, but we made it a brave space, right? So thank you all for sharing your stories, for all that you do in your specific fields, for all that you do as being siblings, being seniors, and setting the GPA that much higher for whoever's following, right? But also being the leaders that you will be in the future. Thank you all for allowing me to be the moderator. It was an absolute honor. I mean, beyond humbled to be here. Three things that when we had our planning meeting, there were three things that we wanted to make sure we accomplished, and hopefully by show of hands, whether thumbs up, thumbs to the side, or thumbs down, right? The first one is acknowledgement, right? Were we able to acknowledge, some of the things that contribute to mental health and anxiety that our students face? Right? Second part was educate, right? Were we able to provide some education around what we were able to do and understand around these things? Right? And the third was collaborate, right? How do we come together? Understanding, like some people may have not known about Bridge, may have not known about ARC or other opportunities, or even, Miss Maxine or maybe the APs, right? But now you have resources in your direct network that now it's right. It's one thing expands to another, right? So you tap into, Miss Ambrose as an AP at Hall. Yes, I wanted to make sure at Hall, right? Now you have a network that Miss Ambrose can connect you with, right? I appreciate you all. This has been amazing. I learned a lot, right? It made me better, and I hope we all came in here and we were able to leave with something to take back to continue to be stewards in the fight against mental health and anxiety amongst not only our youth, our teens, but also amongst ourselves and the people that we interact and work with every day. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
This has been amazing. You all are so great to be here tonight. I can't believe we got this to happen. And you all are amazing to be here. And on Zoom, there's still some people hanging out. I know we've had some tech issues, so sorry about that. But we do have a recording of this event, which we'll push out. And we have time if you want to stay and talk to these speakers. I just want to shout out to the students because they have really good peer-to-peer. You may not know this, but they are working in their schools on peer-to-peer support in different ways. So if you want to come up and talk to them and say, like, what groups are you doing that with? They can give you a nice explanation about it. And it just is very heartening to know what's happening in the schools between among our students and these great folks in and out of the schools. So don't forget, we have Bridge folks over here. I think we have the president and the vice president of the TV club that can talk to that are joining us. We have the town social services, and we have the Institute of Living folks back there that's in Hartford, really great resource. So please take some time, eat some food. Virtual folks, thank you for coming, and we'll finish up right now.
And we just want to thank and honor Rebecca Seaton too, because she did all the planning and organization.
Joy Russell, Manuela Canales, Jen Rossi, and shout out to Nancy Schwartz who helped us get the Bristow setting. So thank you.
Please make sure you grab pieces of paper. The information that's on there, are resources available. Again, we offer this because this is what we're here for. Right? We all learn and build together. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all.